The old Socialist Party is largely forgotten today. It is forgotten because it failed. A failure so immense that it destroyed not only itself as an organized force, not only the movement of the working class it sought to lead, but the very reputation of what it stood for and sought to do. Because the memory of this party is damaged or lost, the reasons for its failure are poorly understood. It is not clear whether, as some claim, socialism was always bound to fail, an impossible and foolish dream from the beginning, or whether it might still be possible, desirable, or even necessary, and hence whether overcoming this failure might also be necessary. In either case, there are undoubtedly very significant lessons to learn from the socialist legacy. But nothing is learned so long as this subject remains obscure and forgotten, or misunderstood and misrepresented. The failure of the Socialist Party in the 20th century has taught generations of people that socialism can only result in a totalitarian nightmare, and hence must be opposed by all who love freedom and hate slavery. They have learned that the capitalism the old socialists opposed is identical with the revolutionary tradition upon which the United States was founded, the tradition of individual liberty and self-government, of a free society constituted through the free association of its members. Yet the old Socialist Party opposed capitalism as the destruction of liberty and self-government, stripping individuals of their freedom, returning the power of government from the people into the hands of a newly emerging ruling class. They believed the only hope for reclaiming the lost liberty and restoring self-government lay in the working people, if they could organize themselves as a class, uniting all who shared in their common position of dependency and subservience, and together take political power into their own hands, exercising their democratic power as the majority of society by consciously pursuing a common purpose, their common interest in becoming the masters of their own conditions, their own destinies, their own lives, dependent on no superiors, but only on themselves in their free cooperation. This understanding of socialism has been lost, forgotten not only by the working class, but by contemporary socialists themselves. The goal of these socialists is the very opposite of the old Socialist Party. Rather than encouraging the working people to free themselves from the domination of the ruling elite, today's socialists beg their rulers to coddle the masses, to treat them like dependent children who can't take care of themselves. These so-called socialists want working people to remain quiet and content in their slavery, and advise their masters to take the necessary measures to keep their slaves submissive. The people who must be won over to socialism and become the Socialist Party, if such a party should be resurrected, know that socialism was a failure and reject it for that reason. This is not itself an obstacle, for they know the basic truth, however confused they might be about the details. The suspicion and even contempt this knowledge inspires is perfectly justified. The socialists who today deny this failure and who celebrate the results of the failure, the welfare state, and the so-called really existing socialism of the Stalinist regimes, as successes to be repeated and expanded and built upon, only further compound the confusion, preventing this popular discontent with the failure of socialism from obtaining a clear grasp of the reasons for this failure and the lessons to be learned. These socialists earn the derision of the people they are supposed to educate and lead, because they only miseducate and mislead. Those who would remain true to the socialist legacy must rather teach people why socialism failed, which means teaching them what the old Socialist Party sought to do, why it failed to do so, and how the consequences of that failure yielded the world in which we presently live. So long as contemporary socialists claim that the product of this failure represents or even approximates the goal originally intended, they teach people that they are right to oppose and despise socialism. They teach people that socialism deserves to fail, and that socialists are fools for trying to perpetuate this failure, when it should clearly be erased as an error. I want to help people learn what the old Socialist Party was trying to achieve, so that they can see plainly that to despise the monstrosity that resulted from its failure is in fact the proper socialist attitude. Socialists should be the harshest critics of so-called socialism, whether of communist or social democratic descent. The results of the failure of the Socialist Party, massive authoritarian states constantly encroaching upon the freedom of individuals in society, in the West as much as the East, must be recognized as what they are: means of propping up the very problem the old Socialist Party sought to solve, to abolish, namely, the dependence and subservience of the immense majority and the concomitant dominance of an elite ruling class, the collapse of free society and self-government in the face of capitalism, and with it, the recrudescence of barbarism. The hatred of socialism conceals, unbeknownst to those who feel it most acutely, the hatred of capitalism, of the slavery of the working class, of the capitalist state that perpetuates their slavery, and of the socialists who rationalize this slavery and want to deepen it. The hatred of socialism among the masses of working people is really the hatred of capitalism, which survived the failed socialist revolution by calling itself socialism when and where it was necessary to do so, and hatred of those socialists who survive to this day by likewise identifying socialism with capitalism. The contempt for socialism if clarified, would become the most potent force striving for its redemption.